Hit. So welcome everyone who's just joining. I'm asking for you to reflect on where you're at and write one word of how you're feeling. If you want to share privately, then that's perfect. Just one word of where you at, how are you feeling right now. Little reflection exercise. I'm admitting a few people into the office for today, into our meeting space. So write down one word of your emotional state. So not where you at, not what you're doing, but how you're feeling inside. What would be that human emotion? So a few more. Welcome, welcome. Those who are joining just now, write one word of how are you feeling. One word of what would you describe your mental, emotional, and physical state. We're going to start in just a minute. Just wanted to make sure that everyone is here. All right, I have a few words already. They're busy, stressed, at home, fine, sore, tired but content. All righty. Well, I should be having more words. The amount of people that I have here is more than the amount of words that I have. So write one word of how are you feeling right now. If you want to keep it private, just send me a private message and nobody will see it. I'll read it out loud. So I have more tired, unsettled, slammed, anxious. Oh wow, we are really hitting right spot with the topic of the webinar today, stressed. All righty. Well, welcome everyone. We have a lot of amazing information to cover and fine, yay. So we have a few fines. So we have a lot of information to cover and I wanted to keep it short and concise. Please ask questions. I will pause a few moments if you need to ask me any questions, but we have a lot to cover. I'll share my slides. So please communicate with me. I have a lot of videos off, so this is actually the time when we can interact. So if you feel like you can turn on your video, that would be phenomenal. And I'll be starting. So let me share the screen and we'll get going. If you just joined us, write one word of how are you feeling? What is that emotion that is running through you right this moment? If you want to keep it private, send me a private message and we'll be set to go. The presentation is loading. Give it a second. Alrighty, anytime. So you should be seeing my topic right now. So we are going to be talking about reducing anxiety, fear, and worry today. And this is the topic where I want to make sure that we're not talking so much about office implementation. We're going to talk a lot about you. So this is the intention, but I'll touch up a little bit about how it correlates to work. But could we all agree that if we are feeling less anxiety, if we are not fearful but happy, and if we don't worry but have peace within ourselves, then we operate better? Would we agree on that? Thumbs up. You can do this. Since you guys have cameras off, just do this virtual thumbs up, I guess. Okay, awesome. Thanks. Great, great, great. Yay, some cameras on. Awesome. Alrighty, I wanted to share with you this picture from my childhood. Not sure if some of you have seen it or not. This is me. Those who can point where me, I'll send the book for free. But we were taught in high school, I don't know about you guys, how to survive in extreme situations and how to wear a gas mask and any other things. But we were not taught how to process trauma emotionally, how to respond to similar situation that we're at right now on an emotional level. I learned that way later, and this is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I would like to start by saying that we are, as human beings, all experience the same spectrum of emotions. So there are not that many emotions, that actually there are a lot of them that are studied and a lot of them that are named. But what triggers us to get any kind of emotional responses is precisely individual to each and every one of you. And that's where we're different. That's why sometimes we don't understand one another, because something triggered one person and you're like, that's not a big deal. And then your spouse says something and you're like, that's huge for me and it hurts, and he or she is like, what are you triggered about? So that's where a lot of miscommunication happen, and I would like you to keep that in a framework. There is a term that I recently learned that really helped me to name what we are going to tap into. It's called voluntary vulnerability. And I kid you not, I practiced word voluntary this morning because I was mispronouncing it. So when we talk about voluntary vulnerability, we're talking about turning inwards and facing our emotions and understanding, what is that anxiety? What is the fear inside you? What is the worry? And I want you to take as a rule that there is nothing wrong with you, that you have everything you need to overcome any spectrum of emotions that can bubble within you. What tools and resources you're going to draw to that, that's vary for each personal individual, but you need to come from that place that nothing is wrong and that you turn inward towards that emotion. I would like to break down a few things on a neuroscience perspective on what we talk about anxiety, when we talk about worry, when we talk about stress. What is it looking like within our brain? Give me just 1 second. I'm still admitting some people. So on the neuroscience perspective, when we talk about undesired emotions like fear, worry, anxiety, I assume that you want to change. I assume that you no longer want to feel them. And it's important to understand where in our brain these things get triggered. We have the majority of our survival emotions like fear and worry and anxiety originating either from the hidden brain, which is the oldest reptilian brain, red on the graph, or in our limbic system. So it's the midbrain, kind of like in the center, and there's your amygdala, there's your hippocampus, and they all interact. However, where we're judging ourselves from how we should be and where we could react better is actually from prefrontal cortex. So we respond from prefrontal cortex, we react from emotional and hidden brain. And there, a lot of disconnect happen because if they're not communicating, if you're not understanding which part of the brain you're operating at any given point, then there's very little control and opportunity to change. And then the moving brain, that's your habitual response. That's how you train yourself automatically to respond to certain things and triggers. And I'll pause here for just a second. Does that make sense? Are you guys with me so far? Thumbs up. Going fast. We have a lot of great stuff. So I want to make sure this is just the basics. If you want to get into anything in detail, let me know. We can break it down. So you're operating on your fear. When you're fearful, anxious, overwhelmed, you're on the back of your head. Where you want to be to respond in the most adult-like, composed manner is from the front. So just remember that. I have this favorite author, one-off, Michael Singer, who wrote a book, The Surrender Experiment and Untethered Soul, and I'll recommend that book later. And so he says in one of his writing that challenging situations create the force needed to bring about change. The problem is that we generally use all the stirred up energy intended to bring about change to resist change. So think about your classic worry and anxiety that right now got from coronavirus or from anything else that has happened in the current past months. And we have that all energy of fear. If you think about fear is not a passive mode. It's actually very charged. Anxiety, like the whole inside is trembling, at least the way my anxiety rises within me. If you think about worry, there is a lot of going on inside your head, inside your stomach, inside your heart, perhaps, even inside your limbs. Like you want to either run or you want to sit still. Right. And the majority of time, because we attribute the source of that energy for the external environment, we kind of look outside for the solutions. So my invitation for us today is to turn it back inward and to realize that all these things like anxiety, worry, fear, stress, they're actually natural biological responses that serve us. They are there as survival mechanisms, as thriving mechanisms, because they're not all bad. And so we want to look at the good side of the coin, of the other side, and how we can actually overcome them by understanding that spectrum better. So I hope that works for you. Let me see very quickly the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. So we have a little bit more of overwhelmed and slammed on how we were feeling this morning. So if you have any questions, interrupt me. And so we're going to be reversing the attention. And one thing that I realized when it was coming on understanding my anxiety and worries and stresses, and trust me, I've had more than I ever wanted in my life, I understood that we're actually operating, when we talk about these feelings, on a habit. It's a habit for us to be anxious. It's a habit for us to feel worried. And what I mean by that is that we think, feel, and act on the habitual patterns, and how we feel, act, and think continuously contribute. And so if anxiety is a habit, then happiness can be a habit too. And if some of you have been present on the last Ask and Share, then remember we talked about I feel versus I am. This is where the separation starts. If we start to understand that it's not the whole you who is anxious, it's not the whole you who is feeling fearful and worried. And yes, it's very real and it's very consuming. Like you're slammed, you're overwhelmed. It seems like it consumes the whole you, but it's only part. It's still only part, and you can replace it by I feel anxiety. But there is another part that is capable of happiness, that it's capable of gratitude, that it's capable of compassion. And the simplistic way to think about it is to understand that our brain holds only one emotion at a time, the signal that we get. And so if you're not happy, then you are stressed. But if you're happy, then you by definition cannot get stressed. And the easy way to look at it is this: who do you want to choose to be daily? On a high level of things, you can actually choose your emotional response, and you can choose every day not to let anyone, anything, and any place to take away your peace, to take away your content, to take away your happiness, productivity, focus, whatever is that you do. This is on a high level. What we do and how we act is a little different. That's why we need to go a little deeper. But on small triggers things, the small worries, the small anxieties, you can actually choose to not worry again. If a dirty cup somewhere left makes you really upset, then you can choose not to worry about that anymore. If a colleague tilting his or her head this way makes you upset in any way, you can choose to just completely block it off. And so in this way, there is some level degree of control over that. I'll pause for just a second. I don't want to stop sharing the screen because it takes forever to load, but I want to see you guys. I have some on the screen. Does it make sense? Are we doing good so far? You guys are with me, or are you typing emails? I see some of you are. All right, I don't see that many cameras on, but type plus. So I see a lot of things. So stop typing the emails. I hope this is helpful. We are getting somewhere. So awesome. Alrighty, I still see some people are coming in, so it's interesting. Alrighty, I have some plus with you. Good. Okay, great. So moving forward, one thing that I mentioned is on the high level, right? However, we have much deeper triggers, and it wasn't until I started to understand the epigenetics of how we get generational fears, worries, and anxiety. The news is all your feelings that you're experiencing and want to get rid of are not all yours. Let me explain that. There are experiments with mice that were going on to understand DNA and epigenetics of how much we get from the generation. Mice by DNA are very close to human beings, so that's why they study mice. And they were doing this experiment where they will have a scent, I think it was like lilac, and they will sting with electric shock the mice the minute they will smell that smell. And they were doing it over and over till the mice got a response. When they smell the scent, they will get fearful. Then they bred the mice, and 2 generations of that mice had the same reaction on the lilac smell. When those babies, kind of grandparents, were stung and got to smell lilac, and then the babies of 2 generations, whenever they will smell that same smell, they will start getting all anxious and triggered and jumping around. And so they realized that we get passed on the genes. So think about, and there are different things, like scientifically they said 2 generations, but in many different communities, they actually believe that you pass on the genes 7 generations prior and 7 generations towards. So, but let's keep it in 2 generations before and after you. Think about your family history, your mother, your grandmother, your granddad, your parents. Is there anything in the family history that has happened that make you perhaps feel more anxious? I'll share my story is that my lineage of family actually comes from the war zones. My grandmother lost 2 husbands. My mother was highly anxious and grew up in the poverty. My dad's side is not much better, also war zone. And when I started to break down my anxieties and worries, I realized that I am anxious inside me for no reason of the outside environment. I am just anxious because that's what I learned and absorbed from the blood, from the DNA, from my grandparents. And it doesn't give you excuse for everything, but it gives you understanding. And when you get that understanding and don't blame yourself for everything, it becomes easier to create that degree of separation. And so think about the family and the trauma and the history. And what helped me actually last year, I finally, when I realized that has happened, I finally got to talk to my mother about it. And I took her to India, and she didn't know that that would be the purpose of our trip. But as a result, we had a chance to talk about the whole spectrum of things: her childhood, my grandmother, my father's side, which is not typical for Russians to talk about. And by hearing her stories, by understanding her frustrations, and by seeing the similarities, I understood that these were not mine. And as I understood that these anxiety and worry and fear was not mine, I was able to let it go. And it was a profound healing experience for me. So maybe you don't have an opportunity to talk to your parents or grandparents, but at the same time, check within your history. Is there anything that within your family that you can trace back? And if there is, then see how is it repeating within you right now. So let me pause for just a second. Any questions? I see, guys, some of you are logging in, logging back off. So how do we block out these dirty dishes? It's a choice. So whenever you, it depends how, so I have a question here about the dirty dishes, I guess like the dirty cup that I said. Depending how strong is the trigger, you can literally decide not to be bothered. It's like a choice, like I'm not gonna be bothered by it right now. If you decide to go to the gym, you set yourself up and you say, I'm going to the gym tomorrow, and then you follow through and you catch yourself. Sometimes the dirty dishes can be a much deeper trigger than you think about in conscious scenarios. And so that's what we're gonna be talking a little bit next. And so a little deeper triggers will get there. So I have some comments on the family depressions. Yeah, I see some Zooms are being kicking off. Okay, so good. Let me know if you have any other questions. Am I missing something? Feel free to unmute yourself too. So I'm not seeing the comment from, okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so we have triggers to put dish into the dishwasher because others won't. So again, is that too much to ask? You can decide for yourself, is it worth it to lose your happiness? If you cannot make others by explaining your needs and how it triggers you, if you cannot make them do that, then putting it in and not getting upset over it would be the best choice. But putting it in and being upset over and over, that would be the lose-lose situation for you. So you want to maximize your wins all the time. And you have a choice, either don't do it, or if you do it, don't get upset over it. And I know it's easy said than done, but it's a practice. It's literally a practice. I had the same issue, the same trigger, and that really comes with time not to be bothered by this anymore. So let me go forward. Let me bring you guys back to the office. So how does it all relate? Familiar picture, I know it's before COVID, but have you guys been in a meeting like this at least once or twice in your life? Yes or no? Like nobody has been ever in the meeting? Okay, I see some. So this is the typical scenario of when we are blocking off and not being present, and there's a lot of emotional triggers that can go on with that. So I wanted to explain to you the way our waves are working. Are you guys aware that we are not only this physical matter, but we're actually electromagnetic waves? So we're the matter and the wave at the same time. Our brain emits waves, and our heart emits waves, and the whole body is just a radiance of electromagnetic impulses. Are you guys aware of that? This is science. This is kind of quantum physics measured. There are tons of studies. All right, if you're not aware, I see some like, no, we're not. The news is that we are transmitting a lot of electromagnetic frequencies, just like our cell phone does, just like our TV does, our computers, radios, telephones. Our brain does the same thing. Our heart does the same thing. So when they measure how our heart reacts in frustration, anxiety, worry, irritation, this is measured of that impulse of the heart. This is the top. It's incoherent. It starts to jump up and down. We are everywhere. When we are in positive emotions like love, appreciation, care, our heart starts to create very coherent waves. Our brain matches the coherence of our heart. What does it mean? Is our heart is 4 times stronger electromagnetic impulse than our brain. Our heart develops first in the fetus of the body, and it's at least 4 times stronger than our brain waves. So when we're feeling anxiety and worry, and usually it's here, generally it's not in our head, the impulse goes up to our brain, and our head starts to want to find the reason why. And the reason is usually he didn't put the cup away, the kids are too loud, the meeting went too long. And we start to point out on all this external environment where the impulse actually starts within you. There's something within you, and therefore you need to change it from that side. How do you change that? Is if you cannot do it yourself, it's core regulation. So as human beings, we share this electromagnetic impulses. You are not in an isolation. Even as now we're interacting, we are sharing electromagnetic impulses. We are sharing the energy because I'm reflecting in your brain. You're reflecting in my brain. The slides interacting. It's really complex. And co-regulation is one of the skills and mirroring that they studied in the monkeys. So if the monkeys get cared for and being very nice to, then they're able to blend into society. They feel better. Their immune system is better. If the monkeys get rejected by others, by the community, then they are having all sorts of psychological and emotional difficulties. Also, the monkeys learn what the adults or their leaders do, and guess what, guys? We're still monkeys. We're the same way. So we're mirroring one another. And that's why whenever we're meeting for this 15 minutes or webinars, we're co-regulating together. We're getting to help one another to get into this higher frequency, to have more stability, more control. And so when one of the solutions for co-regulation is those 15-minute exercises that we are having. Not only during the 15 minutes, we are breathing to regulate our heartbeat. We are working on our brain waves. We are down regulating our nervous system to activate prefrontal cortex and default mode network versus that reptilian and limbic brain that is on the other side of the brain. But also we are bouncing the waves up and down of another. Some of you have been attending my sessions since March. Have you ever felt that I came in and I was highly stressed and highly anxious? Like, if you've ever felt, just do the thumbs up. Like somebody's like, oh my God, she's so stressed. It's kind of, Rita, you've seen me being stressed? Tell me.
Just once. I feel like it was when your audio went out, when you were outside for one of the sessions and your audio kept going out and people were saying, we can't hear you. Not terribly stressed, but I could definitely sense that you were, some frustration. That's
yeah,
that's fine.
That's actually right. You were absolutely right. I was like off the chart stressed that day because it was just such a big thing. But yeah, no, that's totally great example. So at least once, but out of that, at least once, maybe 2 or 3 times. But I've done at least, 50 plus sessions for sure. Do you think, guys, I have bad days? Like I moved across the country, I drove. Do you think like sometimes I have bad days and maybe there are certain things going on in the back end? but I'm able to co-regulate. So I'm able to regulate my emotions. So when I show up before the sessions, I'm putting myself into the state where I transmit calmness and tuning in into the opportunity because I understand the science behind it. So what you can do for one another when it comes to helping one another to overcome this anxiety, stress, and anything else, whether it's within your family, whether it's within your workplace, is starting understanding that the way you show up impacts others. So right now in all the sessions, guys, nothing wrong with that, but you are the only company who have all the videos off at every session that we practice. And I was trying to find a Zoom screen when it's like everything is black, but I couldn't. So what I would love to see for you guys doing it for yourself is more screens like that, where you can see one another and you can literally help one another to regulate, because one happy person within any scenario can help others to feel better later. They did a study in the medical offices where they had these people saying that they were waiting for some medical procedure, and there was a different two groups, and for one, a total stranger was holding that patient's hand, like a total stranger, they didn't even know. And the whole biometrical data on stress response were way lower than for those people that were sitting and waiting for the same procedure alone. So you guys are not perfect strangers, and you have your friends and relatives. So if you're having the kids out of control, if you have your spouses that are losing it by now because it's been so long in a lockdown, you know, it's very hard to be emotionally stable within yourself and by yourself. See who can you co-regulate with, who in your life that could add more calmness and more peace. Maybe that person is you, maybe it's a pet, but take advantage of this opportunity. And when we are together in those 15-minute sessions, please attend, because that's what helps you to normalize yourself. And you know, most of you, and hopefully that holds, are you feeling better after the 15 minutes that we're doing together? If you are, thumbs up or a plus. Stop typing the emails, asking a question. Okay, awesome. So these are the things that help to co-regulate. And the way it works is that our mind and our brain get into those coherent ways. Another way, an opportunity that I've presented you to learn how to regulate these emotions is through the challenge. I know that not all of you are participating, and that, you know, it's kind of optional, but these small exercises that we're doing 3 times a day, 2 minutes, it's exactly to balance your heart rate, your brain waves. Interrupt the pattern. Remember, it's that habit pattern. So if you want to participate, let me know and I'll be able to send you the information and you'll get back in. So I'm going to pause for just a second before the recap. Any questions? Because I see there's some chats, but not sure. Ah, did I lose you all together? Okay, God, I thought I lost the whole chat. So, okay, so let me see if there are any questions. Let me see some messages. So I have many years after the events that created that issue, I still sometimes get startled and anxious when the phone rings. Yes, so there could be different triggers, that the trigger point. So consider therapy. Consider different modalities to address those issues, and that's very important. All right, so I'm seeing if there are any questions. Sometimes we turn them off because Zoom seems to work better and less tech issues for the cameras. Yes, I understand. And sometimes it's like it's not a good time to even have the camera on. It's just for the majority of times, see if you can participate. It's going to benefit you. If you see other people and you're mirroring that calmness and feeling part of the community, feeling part of the society, it benefits more. Okay. I'll be using your breathing techniques as I go into the surgery. Okay, great. So yes, there are a lot of things. So we're right at 12. Let me show you just one more thing very quickly of getting the results. So I'm going to share this presentation for you. You are going to have all the recaps. If you have any questions about anything specific, just send me an email, send me a text. I'm an open book as always. And I wanted to share you the opportunity for you to engage in a deeper level, which is a retreat or immersion. So at the end of the month, I'm going to be hosting over the weekend plus 14 days access this wellness reset retreat, which will give you an opportunity to learn more tools, go a little deeper, practice in your own time. And again, 2 weeks access will help you to get into that. This is not part of the Up TV that we're doing. There are going to be other people, and I'm opening to my community, so consider joining. It's pay what you can, very flexible terms. There are going to be for us a chance to go deeper into different subjects and practice a little different techniques, like practice on the floor, practice in different positions, something that usually in the office environment we're not able to. So again, I'll send this presentation. The 2 books that I want to share with you, Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment, great read, super easy. And if you're into epigenetics and you want to understand how your family history and how your whole genes work on your emotions, this The Biology of Belief is a great book and very easy read as well. And there's a lot of scientific stuff as well as just very down to earth explanation. So kind of easy to read. What I want to leave you with, guys, is that you are not the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop, meaning that when you feel anxiety and stress and worry right now in this scenario, it's sometimes not yours. We're in this collective field, and you learn how to discern that, is it something that you are catching? You are like a radio transmitter, and you can catch other frequencies. You are the collective of the people that you interact with, the environments they interact with. So keep that in mind and see if you can be more calm, more compassionate, and ask yourself, what can I do for myself right now for me to feel better? So whenever you have these things, breathing technique, all our exercises, certainly. So here's my contact information again. Please reach out. I know we're over our time, so I'll stick around for any questions that you might have, but tell me if you have any questions whatsoever. Has this been helpful for you? The computer is freezing, so cannot see. Give me just 1 second. Feel free to log off if you need to. I understand you need to go. Thumbs up if this has been helpful. Are you understanding a little more about yourself? All right, I see some thumbs up. I see some no thumbs up. So, all right, let me know what can make it better. As I said, I'll stick around. Let me know if there are any questions. Anybody who can stick around, any takeaways that you took? I guess everybody has to go. All righty. Charlie, do you want to say something?
No, I was getting ready to write you. I just thought it was really great.
Yeah, it really was.
I love how you combine the science with your personal experiences. I think people you couldn't see everybody, but everybody was giving you thumbs up and really nodding. People were on it. No, it was, once again, far more than I expected. You over deliver.
Right.
I want to make sure it's not touchy-feely, but at the same time, it has to be real. So.
And I love that you got science behind it, and it makes people really think. I think the point about you're the drop of the ocean, and how we all do interact with each other, and that does shape us. And I hadn't really thought about the ancestry piece, which was interesting.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Yeah, right. I hadn't either. The story about not the story, but the research with the mice, that's kind of amazing to me, that type of, behavior would pass through generations when it was completely not wired genetically at one point, and then it became wired genetically, That's very compelling.
Well, the good side of it, Rita, there was a flip study that I didn't mention, that when they started to downregulate these mice and actually give them positive responses, that passed on to generations too.
Oh, wow.
It's not only positive and negative. So you literally, by working on your anxieties, worries, your triggers, you stop passing it on forward. And that's what I guess the best motivation for me and working on all these challenges is to make sure that I don't get anything that I can stop right now onto the other people. So works both ways.
Really great.
Awesome.
Thank you always.
Okay.
Hey, you guys, I will follow up and I'll see you all tomorrow. on the 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, Oksana.
Bye. Terry, I'll stick around if you have any questions.
Thank you.